Summer 1944. The Eastern Front. After the bloodbath of Stalingrad and the Battle of Kursk, a lull has set in. The Wehrmacht is certain that the Soviet troops are exhausted after the winter battles. Their attention is focused on the west, on Normandy. But in Moscow, an order codenamed Bagration has already been signed. The goal is not just an offensive. The goal is total annihilation of the entire Army Group Center. In 2 months, the plan was so audacious that the German command deemed it impossible. They were preparing for localized strikes, but Moscow was preparing a catastrophe for them. The first blow was delivered not with steel, but with cunning. While the Germans awaited the attack in the south, in Ukraine, the Soviet army secretly concentrated its strike forces in the swamps and forests of Belarus to conceal the movement of entire armies. A grand spectacle of false radio communications was launched. Fake airfields and plywood tanks were built in another direction. Army Group Center's intelligence reported, "The Russians are preparing for defense." It was a complete bluff, and the Germans bought it. On June 22, 1944, exactly 3 years after the war began, the illusion collapsed. At 5 a.m. on June 22, hell broke loose. It wasn't just an artillery barrage. It was a crushing blow to specific defensive nodes. The partisans blew up thousands of rails overnight, paralyzing the German rear. Then came a barrage of fire, and tank armies poured into the breach. The tactics were simple and terrifying. Not frontal assaults, but deep envelopments. Vitebsk, Bobruisk, Mogilev, the garrisons of these fortresses were surrounded and destroyed in a matter of days. The roads of Belarus turned into graveyards for German equipment. Army Group Center, which only yesterday considered itself impregnable, ceased to exist as a coherent entity. In 12 days, the front collapsed 200 kilometers. This wasn't a retreat. This was a rout. But Bagration had another, invisible army. Tens of thousands of partisans who had been operating behind German lines for years. On the night of June 20, 1944, they struck a blow that paralyzed the enemy. Explosions thundered simultaneously along 10,000 sections of railway. German communications, the nerve of Army Group Center, were severed overnight. Trains carrying reinforcements and ammunition ground to a halt. Command lost contact with their units. When the artillery barrage began, many German divisions found themselves trapped. A steely advance in front, destroyed roads and partisan ambushes behind. It was Operation Rail War, a perfectly synchronized strike at their most vulnerable point. The remnants of the routed divisions rushed about in panic, trying to escape the gigantic cauldron west of Minsk. The roads they had built themselves became roads of death for them. Soviet air power dominated the skies. Tank wedges converged from behind. By July 11, more than 100,000 German soldiers and officers had been captured. On July 17, they were paraded through the streets of Moscow for the world to see the scale of the catastrophe. Field Marshal Model, the first fireman sent in to save the situation, merely stated, "Army Group Center has been destroyed." The day before the offensive, one of the key scenes of the entire operation unfolded at Stovka. Konstantin Rokossovsky, commander of the 1st Belarusian Front, insisted on 2 main attacks in his direction through the impassable swamps of Polessia. Zhukov and Stalin demanded a single, traditional strike. Rokossovsky, usually reserved, refused to back down. Twice he was taken to the next room to think it over. Twice he returned and stood his ground. Ultimately, Stalin agreed. This decision proved a stroke of genius. 2 crushing blows cleaved the German defenses, preventing them from consolidating. Rokossovsky risked his career, but won the battle. His plan was later studied in military academies as an example of unconventional thinking. The results of Operation Bagration are staggering even today. In 2 months, the Red Army, completely liberated Belarus and part of the Baltic states, advanced westward for 100 kilometers, inflicted losses on the Wehrmacht from which it never recovered. It was a masterclass in military art, total disinformation, precise breakthroughs, lightning-fast encirclements. Bagration didn't just push back the enemy. It knocked the foundations out from under Germany's entire Eastern Front and opened a direct route to Berlin. It wasn't just a victory, it was a death sentence.